Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here today talking about Loki, the Season 2 finale, Glorious Purpose. We open where we ended Episode 5. Loki can control his time-slipping, now leaps back to the moment that Victor Timely died and the temporal loom exploded. It happens again. Loki asks OB what went wrong, and OB says, "We took too long." Cue the time travel montage. So we end with Mobius finally journeying back to see his life pre-TVA. He watches his old self and his kids from afar, taking in that experience. Sylvie asks where he's going to go. He says he's just going to stay there for a bit and, quote, let time pass. We then cut to Loki, surrounded by a forest of timeline branches, essentially doing what Mobius is doing. He is watching Mobius from afar, letting time pass. He is, for all intents and purposes, the god of stories. So, Paul.
Yes?
What'd you think of the Season 2 finale?
I liked it. I would perhaps say that this is my favorite episode of the season.
Which is always good for a finale.
Yeah, really. I would give it 8.5, 8.7. I'm, obviously staying shy of 9. But
I gave it the 9 last week, so and again, this is my favorite as well. So I'm going with because I do it in 0.5 increments.
Okay, I see.
I'm going to 9.5. 9.5.
All right. So, yeah, see, look at that little area that you're like, oh, no, I can't say it's perfect.
Yeah, I can't say it's perfect. I got to save something out there. There's a thing there.
Yeah.
No, but this was excellent.
Yeah, a number of the things that I was dissatisfied with in the previous episodes, I didn't feel here. I really liked the dialogue in this quite a lot. And the way that the performances too, and perhaps everybody was sort of getting used to, or at least the characters were at a point where there was only simple sort of things to do at that point, and so you didn't need a lot of extraneous stuff. I mean, one thing you could say, like, this is a complete thing for the second season. This is it. It doesn't make any sense for us really probably to see Loki ever again. This Loki.
It's true. I mean, I have a feeling they're not done with Tom Hiddleston because they're like, but.
Yeah, but they can have another, because this one is an alternate that,
True. That's true.
Yeah,
you could bring Tom Hiddleston Loki back, but a Loki variant of this one is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great point, and that's probably the best way to do it because it does. This has a final type feel to it. You're right. If you came back for season 3 and then you had him undo it or something, like, oh, I can just step away. Oh, great. Like, don't do it. Don't do it.
And I liked how it sort of left its story in a way that set the stage, you could say, for everything else. It's like first they were like, oh, we can't, we have to destroy all these timelines that are variant. And then, okay, no, that's bad. You can't do that. And then it's like, well, how are we going to, this is a calamity. This is clearly not sustainable. And so at the end of it, Loki is the one who makes it sustainable. So you can have as many infinite number of branches, and Loki's just there making sure everything goes fine.
So plot-wise, it seems like Loki decides to let the temporal loom be destroyed. But then he uses his powers to save the branching timelines. The idea was that we learned that the temporal loom was a failsafe. So it was just going to get rid of all the branching timelines and just preserve the sacred timeline. So that was on the table, but that would also basically get rid of free will, essentially. And so to give the cosmos free will, but also allowing for Kang variants to wage war, Loki has found his way to solve this problem. Destroy the temporal loom, but then essentially repurpose it, or control the branching timelines himself.
I'm curious about this, what you're talking about, free will, though. What do you mean?
Well, I think that was kind of what Sylvie's argument was for why there should not, like, why the sacred timeline was bad is because anybody who acted outside of this norm of the sacred timeline was pruned by the TVA. Like, you can't act that way.
Okay.
And so the fact that Loki's actions now have allowed people to act as they will, not through this one path of the sacred timeline, and to still give them some kind of a chance, I guess, that He Who Remains says you're gonna lose, but they always say that. But there are now just a plethora of branching timelines, which also means that the Kang variants can come in and wage war. It's a dual-sided coin. In fact, we get this reference. The TVA is now dedicated, instead of pruning people, is dedicated to hunting down Kang variants, and then we get a reference to the one from Quantumania, in fact. So that's kind of the new purpose of the TVA. I felt pretty good about my hopes for the story from last week. Loki did take over for He Who Remains. He did sacrifice his need to not be alone. We know, so he is now alone, but he can watch people's stories unfold from afar. He did jump back to the moment when Sylvie killed He Who Remains. That became a big plot point.
Yes.
So I think it was a compelling story arc told in a visually stunning way. And also turning the temporal loom into Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology. Well played. Well played. It's just like it wasn't like it was still somewhat of a surprising ending, but it wasn't a shock like, where did that come from ending. It was earned. They laid the breadcrumbs and then they paid it off in a satisfying way in the finale. All for it. I like turning Loki's phrase, I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Yes.
Into a reality. It's not the purpose that younger Loki was looking for.
Yeah.
But it is indeed a glorious purpose, hence the title of the episode. Anyway. Yeah, no, they thought it through. Interesting point. The producer said that Loki Season 2 is the first MCU season to be shot without reshoots.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it shows. This is a complex, timey-wimey story. And it still comes to a satisfying conclusion that you could see coming. And so, it really just built on these building blocks that it said all season. And yeah, I think the fact that there were no reshoots it's a telling thing to say. Like, they didn't film half of it and go, maybe we ought to film this instead and move this around. They were like, this is our idea, stick with it. And they did it. And they pulled it off. Tip of the hat.
Yep.
Tip of the hat.
Good
tip
job.
Of the horned helmet.
Well, one of the weird things, though, that I thought, it was interesting to see Ravana again at the end.
Yeah.
But in a way, I'm not sure why. I guess they wanted us to see everybody that we had seen before afterwards. So we did see...
we saw Ms. Minutes get repurposed.
We saw Hunter B.
B-15?
Yeah, we saw her again.
Yeah, what's interesting about Ravana is, so she's, whenever in that the end of time, and it appears that Alioth, the big creature that emits the purple light or whatever, is in front of her.
Yes.
But we don't see it like devour her. That's the implication. But
right.
I could make a case if I was like, oh, we don't want her to die. She was the general of He Who Remains army.
Sure.
Could it be possible that she wasn't considered an enemy of Alioth? That it might be like, welcome, faithful Alioth. No, I don't know what the future has in store for her, if anything, or if it was just we're not going to show the whole thing. We'll just imply it. She's screwed. Goodbye, Ravana.
Right. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. It's not a detraction necessarily, but it's it doesn't feel like it's something that's leading to something else. But
was it deliberately vague?
That was a curiosity.
If we want to bring her back some point, let's leave ourselves an out. I don't know.
And it's funny to me, in a way, that they don't. Once the resolution of Loki. Gathering all the time strands and everything happens, there's not a lot of, it's like it felt very vague exactly what was the result, how it affected everybody's lives,
right?
That one scene between Mobius and B-15, it just, it was like,
I
we
see
got to
what
go to
you're
this meeting.
Yep.
This meeting and whatever, and okay, I'm gonna go back. It's like it was more important where the characters were emotionally than where they were, situationally, which is fine. Because in a way, it's like I sort of feel like you could look at the last episode where in terms of science and fiction and look at this as a way of being a more fictional portrayal of all this stuff. That is, I think looking back now in its totality, they could have been a lot more sort of allegorical with, sort of things there without having to attempt to make it scientific.
Well, it's a good point about Mobius. Like, okay, we see him standing on the street watching himself.
Right, yeah. So you could say, is he waiting for the point for him to disappear and then take over his life again? But we don't see that.
That's what I was wondering. Like, is he going to jump back into his life? But it didn't sound that way. It's not like, for instance, Sylvie was going off to parts unknown.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, does he... Yeah, I don't know what that was all about. Does he get arrested for loitering? And then you're like, oh, no, wait, oh, crap. Where's your ID, sir? Anyway.
Yeah, so that's why really that felt very, and a lot of people had sort of found this very zen sort of, at ease attitude with where everything was. And, it's like, it's interesting the contrast between the desperation that was in Mobius, or not desperation, but sort of distraction that he had for jet skis. But really, though, obviously what that was a sort of in lieu of his affection or his loss of his family.
Right.
And so in the end, he's not on a jet ski. He's looking over at his family.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you're right. The ending, after Loki makes the decision and we see him kind of ascend the throne or whatever, there's a little melancholy air to the whole thing of like, he's accepted this sacrifice, you'll say it, whatever, and he's now there, and everyone has acknowledged that he made that sacrifice. I'm glad that they didn't do a thing where everybody forgets. You're like, oh, now they all remember what's happened. True, they're like, I wonder how I got here. Thank you for that.
And even that, I thought that final scene with He Who Remains, I really, thought that was really well done.
Yeah, that was great with the little back and forth, the little power play, and then Loki kind of stealing it back with like what makes you think this is the first time that you and I have had this conversation? So like, but so what do we think happened to He Who Remains? Like, do we think he died, or?
I think he probably was stabbed by Sylvie. Okay. Loki was trying to keep that from happening, right?
Oh, it's a good point because the loom. Well, he destroys the loom, but it looked like it was going to be destroyed anyway. So yeah, maybe that's post He Remains being stabbed.
I think so. Yeah, okay. So I think ultimately those actions still happen. All the discord that's happening is discounted by Loki, becoming a part of it. And it's funny though that the thing that I thought when Victor Timely goes out there. Is like, you're just a human. Why isn't it just understood that one of the two gods should be going out there?
I mean, I guess they showed that, under less radiation, Mobius as a human was able to get out there and do it. So, but you're right. Yeah. The physical limitations were apparent. But that's also fun. It's one of my more favorite improv games to play. It's a game called Countdown, where you do a scene, let's say it takes a minute. Then you do that exact same scene as best as you can in 30 seconds. Then you do that exact same scene as best you can in like 15 seconds. And then in 5 seconds. So like you're just trying to get basically the meat of the bone. What is this scene about? How do we get that out in a few seconds? Sure. And we kind of got that with again. Okay, go push the button. Thing. Okay, you got it. Okay, go. I appreciated that you could feel the the tension rising in Loki. You could feel like the sense of like, just do it. Oh, please make this work. The fact that he asks OB like, well, how long would it take?
Yes.
For me to learn about time looms. Oh, centuries? Okay. Which also plays into the ending because now he knows everything about how time works and everything. So they actually built that into the story arc.
I felt that was a very plausible way for Loki's character to make the emotional decisions that he did. I mean, perhaps that it was just all set up in a way where if I were to really watch it again and feel like, in a way, I guess you could argue at the end it almost didn't feel like Loki because, it's all this experience that was quite different than what we had seen in the Thor movies and Avengers. So
Right. He has changed, fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
Well, we saw I guess you would call the main MCU Loki change, right? He ended up sacrificing himself in an attempt.
Yes,
he was attempting to kill Thanos.
That's true. Yes,
he was attempting to do the right thing.
Yes,
and died for his pains. But so I guess he had that capacity. But yeah, so that his trials and failures, I appreciated the way that was cut, the way that was shot. And you could see everybody around him looking, like Mobius is kind of giving him a look, and Sylvie's giving him a look. Like Victor Timely's like, this all seems rather rushed.
Yeah.
I don't even,
Yeah, I would say there was a high degree of difficulty for those scenes because what he was doing certainly should have been, and it did feel as if it was disorienting for the other characters, and we, the audience, have faith in Loki and we understand what he's doing, so it could have felt like their confusion and how they did not really seem to be acting motivationally at all because they were just sort of like, okay, tell me where to go or whatever.
Right.
But it didn't feel awkward at all. It really felt like it was an example of him just really knowing exactly what to do and telling people exactly what they needed to do.
And you've also got the fact that it's these people who are well acquainted with the idea, even that he time slips.
Yes.
And are like, has he seen this before? Like, they're piecing it out. Like, they're like, I think he's done this before because he seems to be, so that's...
Yeah, and I think that's why I really appreciated that final conversation with He Who Remains, where it's sort of like, this thing that you're experiencing, so now you know that this is all part of it. It's like, all right. You could have, in some ways, I think I might have, I don't... It really is nice because I don't think I appreciated fully the end, that season end where he came along and was killed. I think I, in a way, didn't have faith that that would feel like it was worth it.
I see.
With what occurred, and no, I think they definitely
because they also
got their
built
monies
up
out of it.
This potential false choice of like, you either have to kill Sylvie, or and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. He kept not doing it. I mean, he had so many times to just give up and go, fine, I'll just kill Sylvie.
And to the point where she says, you have to kill me. I'm not going to make it easy for you.
Yeah. So I appreciated that too because we saw him do so many other okay, let's cut the corners, let's do the thing. He can't do it. He's like, no, I'm not killing Sylvie. I liked the little beats as he's trying to fix the loom. The things like he's having to constantly think through. Okay. In the last 200 times I did this, what were the mistakes? Yes. Okay. Oh, make sure you latch the collar. Yes. Don't put the device on the gangplank. It's going to roll off. Are you putting the device on the gangplank? Don't do it. It's going to roll off. I mean, that was all good stuff.
Yeah. You didn't have to see all that stuff. Just the fact that they were telling you tells the story that he'd just been through it so many times before. Yeah, and for me, it was funny. Do it as fast as you can, and it's like that's not fast at all. It's not.
I know.
He is not moving quickly. It is not.
Can you put him on a skateboard or something? Yeah. Jet boots. Yeah. It's like, oh, there's no way. Anyway, but then it was cool because then they do the thing and they're like, oh, we did it.
Yes.
And you know, inside everybody knows something's going to go wrong, but something goes wrong. But it is a fun little. There's a cathartic moment of like, oh my god, the culmination of these uncounted number of attempts has finally worked. And I thought, we could see that with Tom Hiddleston's performance too. That he was like, "Oh God, it worked!" And then it's like, "Oh, it's all starting again." Like, that was pointless. It was a waste of time, as he says. So yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Great stuff.
Yep.
It kept getting better and better, and it ended on a high note. And kudos to the show, big time. So, we are going to be checking out the Marvels this weekend, and we'll be talking about that next week. And then we're going to be looking around for a show to cover going forward. So we got some options, but anyway, we're looking around. So if you've got some options and you want us to cover something, feel free to put it in the comments. Thank you as always, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir.
No problem at all.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.